Coming up today on Eagle Eyes on Tech, Apple takes a major loss in their battle against Epic Games. Xbox prices are going up. We'll get into the reason why exactly. AI researchers performed a social experiment on Reddit. A major independent YouTuber just completely undid her career thanks to her business practices. And there is a full self-driving semi-truck on the road. All that more coming up today on Eagle Eyes on. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, North Swim. Go to bury this Eagle Eyes on Tech. I am Eagle Falcon. We got quite a bit to talk about today. I do feel a little bad that one of the headlining topics today, and is at this moment the title of the episode, I may decide against it by the time the episode goes up. I feel a little bad that we're kind of like stretching the definition of tech news, because now we're going into the VTubing space, because there is some pretty big news in the VTubing space that I do have some unique insight on, just because I know how businesses operate, but they wanted to claim that their way of operating is just business. I mean, at that point I could talk about some of the streamer drama that happened recently, but that's almost too political for my taste, even though I absolutely do love seeing Mr. Hassan get his lumps. Oh, but in any case, let's actually stick to the actual tech issues before we get into almost tech issues. Starting with Spain and Portugal, who were in the news recently for having some power failure. Now, at first, it was believed that Spain and Portugal both were hit by this widespread power failure. Now, keep in mind, when I say widespread power failure, I mean the entire blasted country both. Now, Portugal being hit by a nationwide power outage, you know, you could go ahead and say, well, that's not too big a deal. Portugal's a pretty small country. It got Spain too. Spain is like 10 times the size of Portugal. I actually don't know if that's true. Don't quote me on that. But Spain is massive compared to Portugal. I may not be a geography specialist or anything, but Spain and Portugal combined is a good sized chunk of Europe. So for both to have a complete countrywide blackout is astonishing. And the literal first thing that everyone thought, oh my God, it's a cyber attack. It finally happened. After years upon years of being worried that one day the hacker mans could take down an entire power grid, and then fear-mongering about that forever. Granted, it's still possible, but no one's ever done it. And in this case, no. Someone in chat is now giving me details on how big the two countries are. Okay, Portugal is slightly under 36,000 square miles. Spain is 195,000 square miles. So, and then they compare it to the state of Wisconsin, which is a little over 65,000 square miles. Yeah, I kind of stand by my statement that Portugal is kind of small. Are there smaller countries than Portugal? Yes. Are there bigger countries than Portugal? Absolutely. But I'd say it's under the smaller size. Someone in chat says they wouldn't say it's small compared to the other countries. Compared to Spain, which is our other country of reference here. I originally said 10 times. It turns out it's actually closer to like 5 or 6 times smaller. So I mean, yeah. They compare it to the Netherlands then, which is 16,000 square miles. Really, the Netherlands is that small? Dang. I knew the Netherlands was small too, but dang. Anyway, I digress. The point is that this was a massive blackout. You normally don't hear about it in this day and age. And what's stranger is the actual cause of it, not a cyber attack by any means. The actual reason, I'm hoping this article actually covers it, or actually use the exact language, which of course it doesn't. was an atmospheric phenomenon, which so far has just been called, quote, exceptional and extraordinary. And granted, yeah, it was in fact exactly that. It was extraordinary. You never see this sort of thing happening. Just about ever. Someone in chat said solar flares. You know, it could very well be, to be honest. Like, I'll be perfectly honest, when the actual reason was sent out for what the reason was, like the actual name of the phenomenon, I literally never heard of, which that's not surprising. It might have just been a solar flare, but the thing is that it was not a cyber attack. So if anyone tells you that Spain and Portugal had their power taken out for a few days thanks to a cyber attack, no, it was not. I was hoping their follow-up article would mention it. It does not. Literally, I'm not even kidding. The last thing they said was, we're pausing our live coverage. The cause of the outage is still unknown. Thank you, Sky News. Thank you for having a trademark on the word sky and doing nothing with it. How useful. All right, let's shift gears kind of wildly. Let's go to a court case. How about this one from our favorite, Apple v. Google. I'm sorry, Apple v. Epic. Sorry, just force a habit. Whenever I hear Apple, I just assume Google is also involved somehow. Now, this court case has been going on for a while. Many of you remember when we first talked about it, I said it's going to be a long time before this thing finally finishes. Well, this could very well be the last major update in this case, because the judge has decided to rule basically almost completely in Epic's favor. That, in fact, external links to make purchases outside the App Store should 100% be allowed. And that Apple cannot try to go ahead and instill fear into the user for daring to click said link to take the user to an outside payment processor simply to try and dodge Apple's 30% tax. In addition, because of some of Apple's behavior during the case, the judge is also recommending to the district attorney that Apple be investigated for potential charges in lying under oath, as well as a few other alleged criminal acts that took place during the trial. In addition, a stay was not allowed in the ruling. Apple had to comply immediately and would be fined for every day that they did not. Already, Apple has in fact complied. Now, apps within the App Store do in fact link to outside payment processors if the developer wants to, and that is that. Apple said they are going to appeal. I'm not gonna lie, I don't see a whole lot of hope that Apple's gonna win the appeal, especially when the actual court case itself may in fact involve legal charges being pressed against Apple for their behavior in court. So is that it? Epic got a pretty big win, and that's that? Well, there's still a few other aspects of this case that have not been decided. Whether outside stores should be allowed on iOS devices, whether they can have their own internal payment processor has not been decided yet. And there is also the fact that Epic had their developer account for iOS suspended. So it's not like you're going to see Fortnite, which not many people care about anymore, back on iOS. You're not going to see that anytime soon. But it is a move that is going to help everyone else. So we'll have to wait and see how this goes down. But this might in fact be the biggest update we're going to see, period, out of this case. The rest might just be settled or just be a whisper because it ends up being so minor. That being said, though, I do want to see if Apple does in fact face criminal charges for their behavior in the court case, because that would be Amazing. Meanwhile, though, in other legal news, Taiwan has now passed a law to limit TSMC's investments in the US. Now, this is done. Now, this, they're not saying it, but this to me comes off pretty clearly as an act of retaliation against the tariffs implemented in this trade war. I think that's pretty obvious. Now, as you know, I'm not a fan of the whole trade war thing. I think it is not helpful to US citizens right now. I believe it is terrible timing, both for the people and politically. I think doing this, even though down the road you probably will have to do something like this just to try and equalize the trade playing field, I think the timing right now is the absolute worst time you could do it. And this is just kind of more and more of why. We already saw during COVID that the world's reliance on TSMC to make silicon chips is insane. TSMC shut down for a couple of months. And the fact that TSMC, who originally did have plans to help build, or even just build in general under their own control, foundries in the US, is now going to limit their investments, it's not good. It's not good at all. Because TSMC was planning on opening two, I think it was like 2 foundries under their own name into the US. So for them to go ahead and limit that sort of thing, it's just going to mean that now the US has to rely more on Intel to go ahead and help with chip production, so TSMC doesn't have as big a monopoly. Someone in chat said at this point, let China invade. Let me tell you something. That would be the... I'm trying to stay away from politics this episode, but let's talk political for a moment. Words never said on an Eagle Eyes on Tech episode. If China invades and takes Taiwan back for itself, that means that TSMC, the primary function, the primary foundry for over what 90% of all silicon chips in the world, is now under total Chinese state control. China invading Taiwan would be literally the worst case scenario, both in the trade war and in the political sphere in general, because then that means that China now has every single country, every single one, the US, Canada, Mexico, Portugal that may or may not have a power issue, Spain that may or may not have a power issue. No, I'm kidding. They're both fine now. All of Europe, everyone. They've got every single modern country by the balls, because then China controls all, or virtually all, of the chip production, when right now their state-sponsored developers for trying to develop their own chips are cheering when they can go ahead and create a card that can compete with the NVIDIA Fermi generation. So no, Taiwan needs to be protected if China ever does actually decide to get balls big enough to go after and invade Taiwan, because that actually would be, from the supply side of chips, the absolute worst case scenario. That's like full stop. No exaggeration, no nothing. So yeah, this law, bad idea. Let China invade Taiwan, even worse idea. No. But yeah, we're just gonna be disappointed in the fact this happens, and we'll have to see. I don't really have a whole lot of actual T-word news to talk about, but I do know that trade deals are in the works with many different countries. So I do know that's in the works. So yay? We don't know much outside of that though. Meanwhile though, because of said T-word, Xbox is raising their prices on consoles, games, and controllers worldwide. First-party games from Microsoft will be reaching $80 by the end of 2025. The Xbox Series X is now $600 in the US and the Xbox Series Xbox Series S is going to be $380. So just when you thought that the cost of building a gaming computer was going to be too high because Nvidia can't seem to make GPUs to save its life, lo and behold, the price of Xboxes go up, and a lot of speculation is that this is all because of the dreaded T word. But here's the thing. Why are games going up by $20? You're digitally distributing games, sir. And it's not expensive at all to manufacture. What does the Xbox even use? Do they use Blu-ray? What format of disc are they using? Whatever. The point is that to make someone in chat says it is Blu-ray. I believe it. Someone could also said no, they're using quadruple layer DVDs because Sony has the rights to Blu-ray. I would believe that as well. I also don't know if a quadruple layer DVD exists. I just made that up. Before someone goes ahead and say, oh, they totally are. And it's like, did you just quote me on a thing I made up? Anyway, I'll be perfectly honest. I think that has almost nothing to do with tariffs at all. I think the fact that this is being timed exactly with one of the big deadlines with the tariffs is a cover for them to just increase the prices. Now, if they see that Nintendo is increasing their game prices by $20 to up to $80 and $90. But here's the thing, right? I said in the case of Nintendo, I am okay with Nintendo increasing prices to $80, but I'm now going to go ahead and think longer and harder about whether I do buy that Nintendo game. It's going to be something I consider because for the most part, 99 times out of 100, when I buy a Nintendo first party game, there's no additional season pass or DLC or metric ton of other side purchases to go ahead and get. They don't try to microtransaction me after I already shelled out $60 and try to get another 100 out of me in microtransactions. Most of the time with Nintendo, what you see is what you get. It is what you consider traditional. That is not the case on the Xbox. You pay $80 for your new copy of whatever Elder Scrolls 6 ends up beating when it finally comes out. You then find out there's 2 day one pieces of DLC for additional stories. Oops. And then find out that, in fact, there's cosmetic items such as horse armor on top of that for another $10 each. Who am I kidding? This could be $15. Or actually, heck no, I can go with a more modern example. You buy Call of Duty for $80. There's a battle pass in there that if you don't want to go ahead and play every day every day until the battle pass expires and a new one comes out, it is $50 to go ahead and just purchase everything on the battle pass, or an additional $15 to unlock the second tier of the battle pass, because of course there's a second tier of the battle pass. What's the point of a battle pass if it doesn't? And then on top of that, there's always like a $40 skin or sometimes $60 skin to also get every single battle pass season with Call of Duty. And it's like that right there is one of the reasons why I don't get games like Call of Duty. It's just a money pit. So increasing your gate to entry to your money pit by $20, guess what? I'm out even more. And when you look at the current economy of things, where everyone is looking at their stuff going up and up and up and up in price because of the T word, you got to go ahead and look at this and go, do I really need to go ahead and do this to myself? And I think that the $80 price tag in the case of Microsoft is going to hurt them way more than anything else. In fact, here's a very cold take. I think Microsoft would have made more money keeping the games at $60 than by raising them to $80. I think the amount they'll get with this 1/3 price increase is going to be counterbalanced and exceeded by people saying, no, thank you. It's bad enough that in the console war of things between Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, Microsoft is losing. And they're losing bad. And they have right now, or well, not anymore, but they had the cheapest bang for your buck console on the market. Performance per dollar, the Series S was king. Now it's just, Someone in chat says Xbox has barely any exclusives, so the price increases mean this. Oh, no. You don't understand. This isn't Xbox exclusive games. This is Xbox in-house games. That means anything that is published by Microsoft will be $80. This includes all the studios Microsoft bought, meaning all of Activision Blizzard, all of Bethesda, all of the shredded remains of what was Rareware. Man, remember Rare? Remember Perfect Dark? All of those studios. Many more I can't even think off the top of my head because it's that numerous. All of those will have their prices go up by $20. And you know what? I'm willing to bet they're going to go ahead and be $80 on the other platforms as well. Oof. Someone in chat just hit me right in the nostalgia feels with remember Conker's Bad Fur Day? Oh, I remember. Ooh, man, I remember that one. Man, good times. Actually, for that, back to the previous chatter's comment, Xbox has barely any exclusives. What exclusives does the Xbox have? Like, what is exclusive to the Xbox? I don't even think anyone can name one. Oh, well. We'll have to see how this goes out for everyone else as this price war ends up going. Someone in chat says nothing recent as far as they can remember. Yeah, kinda. Speaking of video games, we're going to get one last thing in before... You know what? Actually, I take that back. I can easily sneak this in with the next story because they're kind of tied together. We're going to go ahead and take our first break here. When we come back, I want to talk about the upgrade to the Switch that just recently happened, as well as some bad news for Wii emulation. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back. Welcome back, Eagle Eyes on Tech. I'm Eagle Falcon. All right. Now, the Switch update finally did come out. We were promised by the end of April that there would be an update that went ahead and implemented virtual game cards. Lo and behold, the update has been provided on the 30th. Of course it was. Of course on the 30th, the virtual game card update was provided. So what does the update do? The whole thought process of this is that you'd be able to, on your digitally downloaded games, be able to load and lend these virtual game cards of your digital only games to other people. They'd be out of your inventory into another person's, and then you get it back in about a week or two. All right. On paper, it sounds like a good idea. A win-win for everyone, etc., etc. Here's the thing, and even I didn't realize about this. There was a feature to already share your games online, and this virtual game card system that Nintendo has implemented is actually worse. This actually is apparently a step down from what Switch owners used to have. But hey, now you got a cool little menu that says, hey, you can go ahead and all your game cards right there. And in my case, yep, I can even show you right here. There's all my virtual game cards right there. You can just load them, loan them, lend to someone else. Now, granted, one thing I actually did mention, you can only lend to someone in your family group. So they have to be a quote unquote family member, just to make it even worse than it already was. So, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of see it as an L, no matter how I shake it. But at least there's a neat interface for all your digital games, I guess. Now, honestly, if you don't care about sharing games at all, and you don't go. Someone in chat said, try to prove my family is 8.3 billion people. I'm part of the Earth family. Someone else in chat said so-and-so's kids won't return games. Fortunately, the games automatically do get returned to you after a certain number of days. So as the original owner, you control whether you get your stuff back. So it does have that advantage over lending someone an actual game cart. Like if I go ahead and lend my my roommate my copy of I'd say Advanced Wars Reboot Camp, but I think he has that game too. What game do I have that I know my roommate doesn't have? Probably one of the Dragon Quest builders. If I want to lend him that cart, there's a I don't know, about 50-50 chance I'll never see that cart again. Granted, I base this on absolutely nothing, but you know, at least I can go ahead and lend him the game, and then it's in my hands. Though with the digital one, you get a bit more control, but it's family only. Someone in chat said renting returns, get money up front and lend them the game for a week. Man, that'd be nuts. It's the new scheme. Join the Nintendo Switch Netflix family. Pay Netflix $2 to rent a game for a week. It'll be right on your Switch. Honestly, the biggest feature about this that's going to matter outside of the lending games part is the part that says load on another system. This is going to be the big thing because it means that if you have a Switch, like I do right now, and then you go ahead and get a Switch 2 after your grand road trip up to Canada to get a Switch 2 that is sub $1,000, and then you go visit a White Castle on top of that, and then make a movie out of it, at least then with this new update, you can go ahead and load the digital games very easily, one button, done and done with your Switch 2. Granted, that is a step down for what you can do, say, for PS4 to PS5, because I can go ahead and have games on both my PS4 and my PS5, not one or the other at a time. Cat now wants to know if Canada has a White Castle. I actually don't even know if there's a White Castle that is north of me, to be honest. This is actually infuriating because I have to keep hitting this one button and then hitting the minus sign. Yeah, the best I could do is hit a White Castle in the middle of Minnesota, even though that would be out of the way of my grand planned road trip to Canada. I'm glad we went ahead and had this conversation so you could go ahead and see these clusters of White Castles that are probably not the complete list. What a useful conversation this was. We never ever get distracted. Never. Anyway, the Wii Homebrew channel has completely shut down after it was hacked and code was stolen. So this avenue of actually getting life out of your end-of-life Wii is now done. Thus proving that no, in fact, we cannot have nice things. It is impossible. Completely and utterly impossible. So, yeah, rip. Right now at this time, I do not know if the current people in charge of the Homebrew channel for Wii has any intention on trying to go ahead and recover from the hack, but most likely that might just be the end of it. Someone in chat asked, was the same guy? The hacking group is called Fail Overflow, so no, it is not the same people who wounded. I can't even say took out anymore. They wounded 4chan. So there is that. Meanwhile, though, in the gaming journalist space, quite a few websites are kind of in a bad spot because the website fandom, or rather the company fandom, has had to make some strategic realignments, and one of the websites that may be going down is one called Giant Bomb, a website that I totally knew about the entire time and definitely heard about them all the time, and definitely did not discover them right as they're about to meet their demise. Not me. Why would you think that? That's crazy. In addition, however, there are some other sites there's some other websites also going under some restructuring, Polygon being one of them that is going to be losing a significant number of journalists, according to their owner Vox. But the fact that Polygon is owned by Vox already was a bad sign for Polygon. And honestly, Polygon being owned by Vox explains all the problems of Polygon. How sad is that? I just hear, yep, their owner is Vox. Oh. No wonder they were bad at their jobs. Someone in chat said that apparently a lot of people over at Giant Bomb were injecting their own politics into it. That's been going around a lot. We were talking about it before with Kotaku. Granted, Kotaku was already kind of a defunct was already kind of a defunct news organization to begin with. But then like one of their editors goes out and like challenges gamers to fight her and insists that gaming's failures is because of all these problems. And it's just like, no, your game just sucks. It's not because of all these social problems you believe exist. Because gamers don't want to play a game that lectures them. I don't want to play a propaganda piece. I want to go ahead and just have fun. Like, people forget that again and again and again. The point of a game is to have fun. You can have a game that teaches you a lesson, that goes ahead and explores various things, but its primary goal should in fact be fun, no matter what the game is. So honestly, if it is as I'm told, it's a shame, but it is what it is. Not that it really matters, to be quite honest. Someone in chat said half of G.I. Joe is a public service now. Half of G.I. Joe was not. All right. Here's what I want to know. How is the last 4 minutes of a show half the show when the show is 23 minutes long? What is considered half to you? Someone else in chat said it certainly felt like half the show. That is a far more honest statement. That also being said, the very weird internet dubs of those public service announcements that just go absolutely insane are the best. That being said, though, honestly, like with G.I. Joe, like every show back then was doing that. Like having some sort of good moral message to make themselves feel good at the end. Sonic did that with their Sonic Says segment. Sailor Moon did that. Captain Planet was just pure, unadulterated, sending the message, but it was so cheesy we didn't care. God, you want to talk about a show that literally was just lecturing you the whole time, but we were just too stupid as kids. We were just like, ooh, pretty fire ring. Captain Planet is the show for that. But in any case, that is the state of gaming journalism. It's fading out. Honestly, the only real talk, the only time I end up going on gaming journalist sites, you know what it is? When I'm trying to Google up a very simple thing for the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy 14, and then like the first hit ends up actually being like GameSpot or something. And they just have like, oh yeah, you can go ahead and unlock that by going right here to these coordinates. And that's the start of the quest. Thank you. This is the most valuable thing you have made in months. Do more of that. Instead of, inject your feelings of the state of the world in it. You don't see me doing that all the time. Just only when I'm doing an opinion-based podcast. That's the other thing. These are journalists. They're supposed to be impartial. This is an opinion-based podcast, and I'm reluctant to inject my own political beliefs into it. Meanwhile, though, YouTube is censoring their thumbnails. YouTube thumbnails will be blurred of mature videos as part of a new test. This, I can guarantee you right now, content creators hate this. Oh, man. Because think about this for a second, all right? What do content creators do to make their YouTube video stand out? They try to make eye-catching thumbnails. So if their video ends up being labeled mature, well, then all of a sudden now the thumbnail ends up not mattering at all. Now it's not going to catch any eyes because now it's just a colored blur. So it's also going to mean that more mature topics, they're going to end up using tie-dye freaking colors for their thumbnails, so it just looks like a blurred psychedelic trip to grab your attention rather than what it'd normally be. And I strongly predict that when this is actually implemented, nobody's going to be happy about it. And keep in mind, this is YouTube we're talking about. It's not like there's porn on the website often. You can't exactly go on there and find, 18 plus content that really does need to be blurred. This is going to be something like let's say, for instance, you want to go ahead and find, I don't know, information on like a specific hunting gun, for instance. This is probably like the most sane example I can think of that's like reasonable for a scenario for a mature video. You're not going to know anything about it because it's just like the entire thumbnail is just going to be forest green. Someone in chat says this will affect a lot of YouTubers because they're big booba avatars. Here's the thing though. Will it? YouTube is not as strict about their mature settings as Twitch. Even though Twitch's standards, for starters, about what is and isn't allowed on the platform is stupid. We all know it's stupid. And their enforcement of their own rules sucks. We can go into a whole conversation about that. Maybe I will one day, and then send it to Tom Clancy and say, hey, when are you going to fix your platform? Or are you just going to be fired before that happens? YouTube doesn't really consider the exaggerated, barely covered assets of the VTuber mature. They look at that and go, it's safe for work, you're good. So more than likely what's going to end up happening is that barely dressed VTuber model that just has triple F badonkadonks out to here, totally fine. That's unblurred. Guy wanting to show off his cannon, blur that. Or guy wanting to show off, who knows what else. That could get blurred. So we'll have to wait and see how this goes down. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're going to go ahead and reevaluate what they consider mature. But right now, it's not looking good for how this is going to affect the experience over on YouTube. By the way, you want to talk about things that are mature, things that should be censored, and things that should not be viewed by mortal men? I give you LlamaCon. The artist formerly known as Facebook has had their very first LlamaCon, a convention solely around AI, of which they talked about all kinds of things that their AI can do, such as, but it can also, but then there's also, I know these long silences are going to get censored, or not censored, but cut out in the actual finished podcast, but trust me, no, I didn't say anything. Now, there was a couple of things that was talked about how their Llama AI model could be used in virtual assistants, etc. It's a lot of what their model could do and what people should try to develop for, but not a lot of here's what we're going to do and here's what it can do right this minute and do actually well. Isn't that great? Aren't you just thrilled that now there is a full-on convention for AI? All from your favorite company. It's all from Facebook. You like Facebook, right? Right? Yeah, we'll just good luck. I don't even want to wish good luck, because the use of AI recently has ranged from laughably bad to absolutely terrifying. Here is one story from the terrifying end of things. Researchers went ahead and used AI to try and go ahead and run a social experiment on Reddit to try and change political minds. No joke. These researchers went ahead, sent out a swarm of AI-powered bots that tried to look at posts in the subreddit Change My Mind, analyzed the users that post them, profiled the users, including trying to get their age, gender, any political beliefs they could get, as well as ethnicity, and use that to form an argument to actually change their minds. Now, it's unclear at this time how much success they had, but I'm not gonna lie, it comes out by saying this is terrifying. Also, this was done without the approval of Reddit. Nobody but the researchers knew this was going on. And we already have an AI problem in a lot of other places, such as on Twitter. I swear, any story you see, it is flooded with dozens upon dozens of bots asking Grok, what is this? Someone on chat says there's an LLM that on Twitch that plays Pokemon poorly. I hate to break it to you, that's not an LLM. That actually is the chat that's playing Pokemon poorly. I'm sorry, that actually is people. There is actually another form of AI that does play a lot of various games, including GeoGuessr. Oh god, I'm blanking on her name now. But here's the thing. Who cares? An AI is on Twitch playing Pokemon. Okay. Is the AI trying to go ahead and change the political landscape? Neurosama, there we go. Thank you. I can't believe I blanked on Neurosama. What we're talking about here, though, on Reddit is a literal swarm of AI bots that went ahead, violated the privacy of tens of thousands of users, and then went ahead and just tried to make up stuff to get them to believe and think a certain way. This is borderline Orwellian, if not actually is. And they did this, again, with no one's permission. Reddit right now is considering suing the researchers that went ahead and did this, of which I am fumbling to actually find exactly what the organization is that did the research. There it is. The University of Zurich. I knew it was a university of some kind. I was just blanking on what it is. But yeah, Reddit's considering actually pressing charges because of this breach of privacy, as well as violations of terms of service. Now imagine that being done on a bigger scale. Think about that sort of thing being done for, you know, political campaigns. It could be something that is very, very terrifying. We're going to take a break here, and we come back. We're going to talk about GPUs, and yes, we're going to get into VTuber business. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Eagle Eyes on Tech. I'm Eagle Falcon. Already, there's rumors stirring about new upgraded RTX 5000 series. You want to know why these rumors are already stirring about? It's very simple. The current 5000 series sucks. Has there been a bigger failure in NVIDIA's history than the RTX 5000 series? Burning connectors? A failure in the lack of VRAM, driver support just absolutely bricking computers, the price already being way too high for the performance offered, and then the stock being non-existent, so the price goes even higher. It's insane. The RTX 5000 series right now is a purchase a sucker would make. Like, I hate to say that, but it feels like it. Like, we're still looking for an affordable model, and the entire series is basically out. They're not going to make an RTX 5050. They should, though, because at least then I might have a 50-50 shot of maybe buying one. These cards suck. So already rumors are coming about super variants of the RTX 5000 series. And the main difference between the RTX current 50 series and the super variant, it's just more VRAM. Cool. Now address the other problems. Address the fact that your cards catch fire. Address the fact you can't seem to make enough to save your life. Address the fact that these things cost way too much for what you're offering. But of course, here's the spoiler for it. They're not going to. Like, I want to believe that NVIDIA might actually think for a moment that maybe doing something beneficial to their customers might be a good idea. But here's the thing, they don't care. Their stock price continues to go up and up and up as they screw over consumer and professional alike, because they only have one real customer now, and that's the consumer, and that right now is data centers. That's the only customer that's keeping NVIDIA afloat right now. They don't care about consumers. They don't care about gamers. They don't care about residential. They don't care about professionals. Let that sink in for a minute. They don't care about the professional market. That is how much the data center is carrying NVIDIA. And it is carrying it like nobody's business. It is insane. So, good for you. You made a super variant, or at least you're planning on it. And a super variant that might have more VRAM, so the whole thing doesn't go ahead and actually suck. That maybe the card can actually go ahead and maybe, just maybe, be a performance increase over its predecessor. But guess what? Let's pretend and assume for a moment this rumor is real. I have all the evidence right now points to NVIDIA screwing this up. I have no faith that NVIDIA is going to go ahead and make a card that isn't going to be made of suck. And here's the best part. NVIDIA's hold in this market is so strong. If you want a card that actually doesn't have this stupid 12-pin freaking fire in a can, you're almost SOL, because all the power supplies are just going, well, NVIDIA's got the dominance and NVIDIA's using the connector. I guess we should go ahead and use it. And they don't have a standard that actually works, because all 12 pins go to 2 planes. That's it. And then they just hope that nothing bad happens after that. Can you tell I am not thrilled with NVIDIA at all? I've already written off this generation. This generation sucks. I've got a 4000 series in my current workstation. I got a 3000 series in my gaming rig. And yeah, I'm not going to touch the 5000 series. I'm not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. Period. End of story. It ain't going to happen. There's no reason for me to do so. And quite frankly, if those two cards die, guess what? They're probably going to be replaced with AMDs, because there's no reason for me to do so. Especially since the actual things that NVIDIA is doing right now. Man, I just can't even. I can't even with NVIDIA right now. Maybe the 6000 series, they'll learn something. But quite frankly, I kind of doubt it. In fact, I don't think they're gonna, as horrible as it sounds, now knowing that NVIDIA does use the same 12-pin connector on their high-end server cards, the ones that are just plug and play via PCI Express, not the ones that are like soldered in, as horrible as it sounds, I am honestly hoping for a fire. I am hoping for some blowback in the one industry NVIDIA actually gives a bleep about. And I hate being in that situation. I don't want to wish disaster on anyone, ever. No one should have to wish disaster on anyone. But I think that's the only way NVIDIA is going to actually go ahead and care. Because let's be honest, me not buying a 5000 card, that's not going to matter. Every single one of my listeners not buying a $5,000 card, that's not going to matter. Although they might as well be $5,000. In fact, 90% of all gamers never buying a 5000 series card is not going to matter. You want to know why? Because the gaming market doesn't matter to them. Heck, the video editing market doesn't matter to them. The MRI market doesn't matter to them. The healthcare industry doesn't matter to them. The CAD industry doesn't matter. Every single professional market in existence doesn't matter to NVIDIA as long as they have their AI sugar daddies to go ahead and pay way too much for these cards. And that's the only place NVIDIA messing up is going to actually matter. That's the unfortunate truth. On the bright side, though, there is some hope from other vendors. Not only AMD is looking to make a decent comeback, but Intel as well seems to be making a decent comeback, as rumors of their large Battle Mage GPU are surfacing it yet again. The BGM G31, which is supposed to be roughly on par with the 5070 for performance. At least, so the rumors say right now. But right now, the only hint that we have that this card even exists is the fact that a shipping manifest shows that the Battle Mage G31 is being shipped between Intel labs, specifically their Vietnam lab, over to some other one. I don't even know if the rumor even states where it's being shipped to. Yeah, not a whole lot that we know about. Although one rumor that's been pretty strong is the fact that this card is going to have 24 gigabytes of RAM, which, not going to lie, good news to hear. So, there's at least some hope out there. And hey, maybe, actually, you know, so here's a funny thing, right? Do you know one of the reasons why I got an NVIDIA card for my workstation? Specifically a 4000 series? It's specifically because Twitch announced they would launch encoder support for H1 encoders, but only for the NVIDIA class cards, specifically the NVIDIA 4000 class cards, and no other ones. There has been no reports that that's actually happened. I'm not gonna lie, that greatly amuses me, because after all this time of them saying like, oh, we're gonna go ahead and do exactly this, and you know, offloading everything to the GPU, very attractive, despite the fact that I have a lot of CPU horsepower, but never happened. Oops. Although maybe it did happen and there's just the button to do it just never showed up. Who knows? Twitch works in very strange ways. Meanwhile, Google is working on a Android UI overhaul. We'll probably hear more about this in oh god, I'm forgetting what the thing's called. Someone in chat asked, I wonder if there's anything legally that can be done about that, because it did spur on sales. I do wonder too, because I was one of those. I would have put the higher end card into my gaming PC for the fact that the 4000 series encoders seemed like a better fit for the stream PC. Or I might have just not even bothered with a GPU upgrade at all in the stream PC. That would have just been a sale that would have just never happened. Hard to say. I don't know. It also could turn out I'm just wrong and just don't have the right version of OBS to take advantage of it, or something stupid like that. Or it's like, you can take advantage of the new feature from Twitch if you download these plugins. And that memo just never got out. To me, at least. We got new UI overhaul for Android. I'm not going to lie, just the early pictures we're seeing of it, with these massive quick action buttons on the top. Thanks, I hate it. It's still way too early to tell for sure, but like this new UI for base Android does not look great, especially compared to say my One UI that I currently use. That's the OS, by the way, that powers Samsung devices, where everything is just kind of nicely compact and nicely laid out. Whereas this thing that the new Android has going on, even in dark mode, it looks like the menu is just one giant white blob. Like, these are early looks. There still could be a lot that's being done, but man, I'm not a fan. Someone in chat said it looks like the UI Numia is using for their Red Magic phones. Whoops. You know, it could be. I'm sure it's just coincidence, right? Granted, I have not looked at like stock Android, and so it actually might just be that. Because the picture we're looking at could be like old versus new, because there is some slight differences. Maybe Numia just uses stock Android. Who knows? Who knows? So that's the thing that's currently in the oven being cooked over at Google. Meanwhile, we have the Raw Ring. The Raw Ring is a mood ring, a smart ring that proves you don't cheat on your significant other. The Raw Ring founder Mariana Anderson, claims that the emotional monitoring done by the Red Ring can help prove that you're not cheating on your significant other. Am I the only one that finds this weird? This just seems like a tool for like the very, very paranoid. It doesn't seem like this would be something that's good for a healthy couple. Like, I don't know. Like, could you imagine if you were just at work or like as a cashier, and then like someone very attractive comes up and it just triggers a response in the ring, but you're not doing anything other than just cashing in their groceries or whatever, but that sets it off? I don't know. It definitely feels super, super gimmicky, but you know what? That is now a thing that is potentially going to exist, for better or for worse. Probably for worse. All right, let's talk about VTuber business. This one is a doozy. Okay, we've talked about in the past about many different like VTuber agencies being bad actors, right? DG Sanji being the first one that comes to mind. There's also some speculation right now that something not great might be going on within HoloLive, but we don't know yet. What about the indie space? Well, the indie space of VTubing is very similar to the just normal freelance streaming space. I, for one, am not owned by any major company at all, period. End of story. Many other VTubers are just like that. They go ahead and manage themselves or pay a manager to go ahead and take care of some dealings on their behalf. That's pretty normal in the indie space. But what happens when your manager is a little psycho? That brings us to the VTuber known as Cinder, which is basically the same as almost every other VTuber you've probably seen except on fire. The main way she took off was because, first off, her model had very big, we'll just say assets. That's the word, assets. But then her model was also designed by a very skilled artist going by the name of Nanoless. All right. Now, Cinder does have a manager. The manager goes by the name of Redacted, also known as Red. Okay. Over several years, the manager Redacted had been trying to guilt trip the artist Nanoless into basically trying to exclusively have Cinder as basically an exclusivity contract. When Nanoless did not want to go ahead and do this, because Nanoless has many other not contracts, but commissions. And keep in mind, the amount of money we're talking about here is staggering. Nanoless models go anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. That's just the VTuber models. Nanoless also does other commissions that are not as intricate as, say, a whole VTuber model for hundreds of dollars as well. Okay, there's a lot of money that this artist can bring in. You're talking about a salary of, I estimated, anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000 a year, possibly more, depending on, how quickly Nanoless can put out these models, but also if Nanoless does have assistants working with them, that kind of plays in very heavily to how much Nanoless's work actually ends up making them, because then you gotta split everything, you gotta pay employee salaries, etc. But back to the whole exclusivity thing. Redacted kept trying to peer pressure this artist into basically being exclusive, but the way they did it is very insidious. They kept trying to be emotionally manipulative and trying to convince the artist that don't worry about canceling this or this on so-and-so, because they're well connected and can get their art anywhere anyway. Instead of just trying to go out there, do what an actual business does, which is to offer an exclusivity contract offer a set salary or a set pay of wage for said exclusivity, and then let the artist say yes or no. They tried to go ahead and kind of guilt trip them into being by default Cinder's exclusive artist and shunning out many other VTubers that are in direct competition with Cinder because they are of similar size. I mean, audience, not, you know what I mean. And this included some big names, such as independent VTuber Shy Lily, and probably one of the more damaging ones, VTuber Bow the Whale, who was listed by name and directly was trying to be blacklisted in this whole thing. This already is scummy behavior. And there is many more other smaller scandals built into this. Okay? Because what ended up happening and why this ended up, someone actually even said in chat, where do I find this VTuber news? I found it from the source. Because eventually the whole thing with Cinder and Redacted, I also want to add, Redacted was the one who made most of the manipulative messages. Here's the thing. Cinder made some as well. And then after Nanolist just couldn't take this psychological torture anymore of trying to be manipulated again and again and again, they dumped it all out. A 7-page Google Doc filled with screenshots and evidence of the psychological manipulation, of the attempt to blackball or blacklist, pick your terminology, they both match here in one way or another, these major VTubers, these same major VTubers that she has collaborated with and publicly considered friends, only to behind the scenes stab them in the back by trying to get them blacklisted from this major artist's work. Then after Nanolist put out their document, and you notice normally I'm giving you a synopsis of this. Normally I would go ahead and read out all of these things verbatim. Here's the problem. There is so much here. It would be a 2-hour podcast on its own if I went through all the documents and read them verbatim. I take that back. It would be a 3-hour podcast. And it would be of just this. So after all this dropped, I should also point out one of the other piece of evidence that came out after this is one other collaborator confirming what some other people suspected. You know how I said that Redacted is Cinder's manager? It's true, but there's an important detail in there. Redacted is Cinder's significant other, which then makes the statement that follows from Cinder trying to then do damage control all that more disingenuous, as she then makes a statement, a very long statement I might add, that basically is trying to take all the actions of Redacted, throw them under a bus, and claim she knew nothing, even though we have evidence that yes, she knew and was even trying to go ahead and push the narratives entirely. But this is all done under the guise of, or Redacted's actions were all done under the guise of, it's just business. As a man who actually does business for a living and owns his own business, let me tell you something. If you tried to go ahead and pull off this kind of psychological manipulation on one of your vendors, suppliers, subcontractors, whatever it may be, if you tried to pull this nonsense on them, you know what would happen? They'd talk to every single one of your competitors. Because let me tell you, every single laundromat technician knows every other commercial laundromat in the area. Every single vendor to every single laundromat. The reason I'm saying laundromat is because that's the business I run. I run a dry cleaner / laundromat commercial. They all talk to each other. And let me tell you, when they come in and we go over what we got and I'm cutting them the check for it, they talk. They tell us all the gossip. All of it. All the hot news. You'd have to be the biggest I can't say that word. You'd have to be the biggest moron to go ahead and think you could get away with this kind of psychological manipulation. For a guy who says that this is just business, you suck at business. Anyway, Cinder puts out a very long statement saying that Redacted, or Red, is no longer her manager, which, by the way, I guarantee you is not going to be the case because Red is also their significant other. But the statement also mentioned kind of briefly that she cheated on him. I don't know why you included that. That seems more like a you problem. Like, did you include that to try and gain some sympathy? You're weird. You're weird. By the way, I keep want to stress the thing. This is a statement. She's trying to claim this is an apology. It is not an apology. It is a statement. Because all it is throwing all the blame on this one guy and trying to say that you're squeaky clean. Her career is over. She may not know it yet. Her career is over. Now, you might think, Eagle, you foolish fool. Her fan base is very loyal because she loves to play the kind of parasocial relationship sort of aspect. All right. Tried to hide forever that she didn't have a significant other to try and go ahead and lock in those degenerates that are like, oh, maybe I have a chance. Ooh, all that sort of jazz. They are blindly loyal, and as you say, rationalization is the second strongest human drive. They're going to go ahead and rationalize whatever it takes to believe that Cinder is still perfectly fine the way she is. You're probably right. I suspect she is going to retain roughly 60% of her viewership when she finally decides to come back. And we don't have an exact date when she's going to stream again. If I had to guess, I'd give it 3 months. I'd say 3 months she's going to wait and try to let all the dust settle. Here's the thing, though. Do you know how VTubers grow? They grow through collabs. They collaborate with other VTubers. That's how they get their exposure. And your name is now death to the entire VTubing space. No one's going to collab with her. No one's going to be dumb enough to go ahead and give an ounce of trust to this backstabber that just tried to blacklist so much of her direct competition. No one's going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. This means she's going to be solo almost the entire way, which most likely means her growth is going to be very stagnant. And as the saying goes, if you're not growing, you're shrinking. That is just the unfortunate truth of the matter. Making things even more awkward, one thing I did neglect to mention, Cinder is a partial owner of a major company in the streaming space. You've probably heard of them. A little company called GamerSups. Yeah, she's a partial owner. This is going to be another interesting little thing that's going to pop up as things kind of develop with this. She has shares in the company. The company doesn't want her. They haven't said anything yet, of course, but let's be honest. When you have this kind of damage on your name, you are not wanted in the company. Not in any stretch of the imagination. So, more than likely what's going to end up happening, GamerSups is going to try and do anything in their power to go ahead and buy out her shares and get her out. And this is going to be another thing that's going to affect her ability to make money. What companies are going to want to sponsor her when you went ahead and did this entire psychotic attempt to manipulate vendors to go ahead and backstab your competitors? It's insane. But that is the biggest bombshell to have dropped last week in the VTubing space. All I can do is shake my head at this, because I still gotta wonder, what did you think was going to happen? Did they really think this would never ever get out? Oh well, it'll be interesting to see how her career goes from here. We're going to take our last break here. When we come back, I've got a few more stories, including a full self-driving semi-truck being on the road actively at this time. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back. Welcome back, Eagle Eyes on Tech. I'm Eagle Falcon. All right. First things first. We've got some news about the Nest Learning thermostat. You remember the Nest Learning thermostat? The giant circular dial that replaced your thermostat and tried to learn everything about how you lived and adjust your temperature based on people when they came in and out of the house. Yeah, back in the day when we didn't think that was creepy as heck. Isn't that weird? Well, unfortunately, support is ending. First generation and actually early generation Nest Learning thermostats supports will be ending soon. How they're going to function after that, because they had to communicate with the cloud, is at this point unknown. Now, originally the support wasn't supposed to be ending for a while, but now October 2025 is when the Nest Learning stat first gen, which was in 2011, and the second gen in 2012 will be no longer getting support. And also the European version of the Nest Learning, the European version of the Nest Learning thermostat in 2024, the European version will also no longer be receiving software updates. Their functionality after that is unknown at this time. Now, on one hand, we are talking about devices that are over a decade old. At some point, you do have to acknowledge that, yeah, you can't go ahead and keep servers up for this thing forever. So, yeah, I get that. You can't go ahead and just keep powering these servers forever for these older devices. Here's what I got to ask, though. Will the newer ones be able to be self-sufficient to avoid this sort of problem down the road? See, this is one of the biggest problems, and we come to this problem again and again and again with devices that need an internet connection to communicate with a cloud server. Eventually, the cloud server is no longer going to be there. Eventually, the support goes away, gone, never to be seen again. And your device is nowhere near as useful as it once was. So we're going to move back, now that processors are getting more powerful and way more power efficient. Are we going to move more and more to devices that don't need a cloud access, that don't need a virtualized box on a supercomputer to go ahead and do their thinking? Or are we just going to continue to just make more smart devices that need these internet connections, because it's that much better to go ahead and make it so that you need to also use their services? Someone in chat points out that these devices were made back before Nest was purchased by Google. That is true. I actually don't know if Nest actually had servers back then. These actually might be dumb enough that they don't need the cloud access. There is a possibility they might still work decently well. And this is just saying, you know what? Nope, we're out. We're not providing customer support. Someone said that Nest had separate servers. Okay, well, there went that hope. There went that pipe dream. I tried to find a glimmer of hope. But yeah, this is going to again push out the talk of, will we see cloud devices go ahead and be standalone again, rather than rely on a cloud server to basically have planned obsolescence for the device. You know what the worst part is? Let's pretend they went ahead and made a non-cloud version of the Nest that actually did all of its thinking on board. But if it costs 2 times as much, everyone would buy the cloud version instead. I guarantee it. And thus there'd be no incentive to go ahead and do the more sustainable thing and make the device that does not require cloud support. It just won't happen. We're stuck. We can never escape this loop. Feels bad, man. Feels bad. In other interesting news, a 70-year-old astronaut was up in space for years and actually gave a little bit of insight into what it was like being in space. And one of the things he noticed is that all the little aches and pains that he had being in, we'll just say up, higher up in years, they went away in zero gravity. You know, all of a sudden, the fear of growing older and all the problems with it, all of a sudden, space tourism seems like a great idea. The man even said that he already came back to Earth and already said that all of his aches and pains came back, and said the next time that they're looking for someone to go into space, he's ready to do it for a chance to get away from those aches and pains yet again. I'm not there yet, obviously. Although now the chat's going to fill with everyone saying I'm old, over the hill, time to be put into a home, old man, etc., 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 because I now mentioned that I'm not old yet. It's inevitable. It happens every time. You just get out of your system, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, it's interesting that zero gravity can take away a decent amount of the problems of aging and just take it gone. Someone in chat points out that gravity does weather the human body. We do know this. However, it can be hell to readapt. Thus why no one stays up there for extended periods. And that's what the case is here as well. It's interesting. It's an interesting little story that's just, you know what? Neat. Very, very neat. Meanwhile, though, a company that goes by the name of Aurora, not the healthcare company, I might add, Aurora Innovation Incorporated, now has successfully launched a full-fledged freight service using self-driving Class 8 semi-trucks. They are accomplishing this using LiDAR, and have in fact showed that the vehicle is operating successfully with no one in the driver's seat. Which, by the way, this screenshot they have of the cockpit being empty and cars being around the truck on the highway is absolutely terrifying to me. Now, before you go ahead and go, wow, they went ahead and built this truck up from scratch. They have not. No, this is a modified Freightliner Cascadia, which is pretty much the gold standard in semi-truck mediocrity. The Freightliner Cascadia is basically like the most common semi-truck on the road. There's a few other ones out there on the US roads. There's a Freightliner Cascadia, the International LT, the Volvo VNL series, the Peterbilt, whatever the heck their numbering system is nowadays, the Kenworth T680, although Kenworths are a bit more rare. Those are like the big ones out there. Those are the ones you see the most often. Mostly you see Freightliners, Internationals, and actually those are the two big ones. Volvo is very clearly like after those two. So it's not like they went ahead and got anything custom. They just went ahead and modified a Freightliner. That's just all there is to it. So yeah, they have self-driving truck services now actually officially underway in the southern United States. I imagine it's going to be, oh, it actually even says here, it is being self-driving across Texas. I'm not going to lie. I'm actually a bit surprised because we went from, we think we're close. We're not close. Ah, we got it. No, we don't got it. Tesla put out a semi-truck. Oh, that'll be self-driving. It's not. And nothing else Tesla made was self-driving either, truly. Even its full self-driving feature isn't actually self-driving. RIP. And now this is out there, actually going ahead and doing deliveries. What's going to be interesting is what happens when this truck gets in its first accident. Not if, when. It is inevitable that this truck is going to get in an accident. Not because the self-driving function is terrible, but because someone is going to cut off this semi-truck and it's going to crash. Someone is going to do something stupid about this truck and it's going to get into a wreck. I guarantee it. And it's no fault of the semi-truck. People are just stupid. It is an inevitability. And I hope no one gets hurt. But when that time comes, what is the law going to have to say about it? I am very, very curious. And finally, I give you the last burb, the last story of the day, the weirdest story of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you a cyborg cicada. You heard me. A cyborg cicada. Scientists have been able to now jab electrodes into a cicada and take control of the organs that I forgot the name of off the top of my head, and now I'm now skimming the article very, very quickly to find the name of the organ that makes the sounds on a cicada and be able to control their ability to make the distinctive cicada sound that they make during mating season. This is all done by the scientists at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. Actually, wait, no, I might be giving the credit to the wrong. Wait, do they actually know who did this? Because they just mentioned like, yes, these Texas scientists did this one thing and scientists over here did this other thing. Okay, here we go. This was done by the Tsukuba team, but they're using these electrodes to go ahead and take control of the cicada's thimbles. That is the name of the organ, the thimbles that go ahead and make the very distinct and loud sound that the cicadas make during their mating season. The theory is that this could be used for emergency notifications and other ways to convey information to a massive area. Do we want to tell them that smartphones exist? That in most major developed worlds, we all have phones. It turns out that one guy from Blizzard was right. We do have phones. We get our emergency messages that way. And also, how exactly are we going to go ahead and transmit all of this? Are we just going to have these cicadas with freaking wires hanging out of them, all connected to basic radios, go ahead and hijack their organs to play this? Look, just be honest. This was not about making an emergency broadcast system. You just wanted to see if you could. Let's be perfectly honest. I think the actual real world implications of what this does mean and what future projects could yield is interesting. But the argument that this is going to be used for transmitting warnings and emergencies is complete and utter bull pie. Folks, that is going to do it for this episode of Eagle Eyes on Tech. Thank you so much for listening, and I do encourage you to check out my other works, youtube.com/EagleFalcon, and on Twitch at twitch.tv/EagleFalcon. Take care, and hopefully I'll see you then. Bye-bye. You know, chat's asking the real questions. Can you go ahead and play Doom on the cyborg cicada? You know, when you ask that question, all right, when you go ahead and ask the question, can you go ahead and play Doom on a cicada? Now I'm all in. You know, before I thought this was kind of stupid and they just wanted to go ahead and do it because they could. Nope. Now it all makes sense. We have to go ahead and find a way to play Doom on a cicada. Also, one other correction. I did find the university name. This actually is from the university at Tsukuba. Japanese scientist at the University of Tsukuba. It was right there in front of my face the whole time. I just completely missed it all 83 times that I skimmed over it. So good job, me.